High tech, low tech, or no tech. Through our hobbies and our passions, the geek comes out in us all.
The world's of geekdom.
I am a geek and I'm proud of it.
Geeks.
Geeks unite.
Well, let's get those nerds! Nerds! No!
Did you just call me a nerd?
Not all geeks are nerds.
Yeah.
This is Geek Therapy Radio.
What do we wait for?
And now your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger.
Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm your mental curator as always, Johnny Hemberger. Welcome in. Did you know that I have a blog? I highly recommend you go check that out. It's at www.thebuzz.com. Just click under shows and blogs, and there you will find Geek Therapy Radio. I put a lot of cool things on there, and I'm going to put a really neat entry in the blog about the oldest building in all 50 states. So each of the U.S. states, what is the oldest building in your state? So if you're listening to this in Michigan, find out what the oldest building in Michigan is. I'm going to bet that for Texas, where I'm located here in Houston, the building isn't in Houston, but I bet you the oldest building in Texas might be the Alamo. Maybe. That's my prediction. I might be wrong. But go to www.thebuzz.com, click shows and blogs, and hit Geek Therapy Radio there and find out what the oldest building in your state is. While we're getting the housekeeping out of the way, and I promise I'll get to the subject of astronomy in just a moment, also subscribe to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast. If you're listening to this on KPRC 950 AM, it's really easy to find the Geek Therapy Radio podcast. By the way, you can get it on Google Podcasts now, which is really cool. Just search Geek Therapy Radio with Johnny Hemberger, and there it is. Also, the Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff is just Geek Therapy Radio. So, with that out of the way, let's get right to this topic of astronomy, because I'm geeking out a little bit about it this week. If you actually went to my Instagram, you see that I just posted a picture of my current little portable astrophotography setup. It's just a little 4-inch Dobsonian telescope. I think it's an Orion that I have my Nikon D3100 mounted to through a T adapter and everything like that. It's cool. You can get really, really good pictures of the moon and some planets that way. Yet with this a 4-inch Dobsonian, you have to manage your expectations as far as what you can do with astrophotography, because obviously it's not tracking. I'm not really going to get super high-res, beautiful images of the Orion Nebula, for instance. But for taking quick pictures of like the craters on the moon, like getting right up in there and almost seeing like individual boulders, 4-inch telescope and a DSLR, that'll do pretty well for planetary astrophotography. So I'm just saying, right now I'm in this stargazing mood. We have lots of things visible right now as of recording of the show here in mid-July 2018. Obviously, the moon is coming out. Mars is at opposition, so it's at its closest approach to the Earth right now. Every few years, we get to opposition with Mars, which means it's on the same side of the sun as us, which is the closest the two planets will come. Usually, you're looking at Mars, and it's on the other side of the sun, so it's way, way, way farther away. But right now, Mars is pretty dang bright in the sky. It's really wonderful. It's that bright orange dot you see up there in the evening time. You can see Jupiter now, you can see Saturn now, and again, I'm talking Northern Hemisphere, North America, what you can see basically from our region, and I'm talking specifically about Houston, Texas. There's been some interesting developments as far as adaptive optics. Now, this obviously, it's not obvious. That's why you're listening. It's not obvious. When I first saw adaptive optics getting back into geek news, I was thinking, wow, does that mean adaptive optics have finally worked their way down to consumer telescopes? Like, can you go buy a nice 12-inch Schmidt Cassegrain telescope and have adaptive optics built into that? No. We're probably a long way from the consumer having true adaptive optics, but I'm going to tell you how adaptive optics works. First of all, it provides it's for in this application, it's for Earth-based telescopes. So not the Hubble floating out there in space. And it's, don't quote me on this, but does the James Webb, is it going to have adaptive optics? Maybe. I'm not sure on that. I've got to double check on that. But the Hubble for sure doesn't have adaptive optics. Hubble was put up in 1990, I think it was. What adaptive optics do is they basically erase Earth's atmosphere. Earth's atmosphere very much so distorts images of space. If you look up even at the moon through a telescope on a hot summer night, you see the wavy lines, the heat lines going through the atmosphere. That's severe distortion. Other things can cause distortion. Gas, dust, all sorts of other atmospheric conditions can create this distortion. But what adaptive optics allows for is correction, real-time correction of that distortion, allowing Earth-based telescopes like the ones we have in Hawaii to get sharper images of space, of objects in space, than even the Hubble is capable of getting, which is amazing. There's all sorts of examples online of Neptune through the Hubble telescope and Neptune through our adaptive optics telescopes in Hawaii. And it's a night and day difference. That's not too much of an astronomical pun. I was about to say astrological. That's not the same thing. Anyways, it's a much sharper picture with our land-based, Earth-based telescopes, which is amazing. Now, here's how it works. Basically, our land-based telescopes shoot 4 lasers into the atmosphere, through the atmosphere, out into space at the object we want to observe. So let's use, for example, Mars. Mars is out right now, and even with our powerful Earth telescopes, consumer telescopes, Mars at best, you're going to be able to see possibly the ice caps. You might be able to see some different terrain features. You can see whether or not there's a dust storm or not. That's about the best we can do with a consumer-based land telescope, Earth-based telescope, looking through the atmosphere, even when Mars is so close to us. Is this apogee or opposition? Anyway, Mars is real close to us. What adaptive optics allows is a much sharper, much clearer image of that. And the way it works is it shoots the lasers at Mars, towards Mars. And what these lasers do is they measure disturbances in the atmosphere. So those wavy heat lines, for instance, what I'm talking about. So the lasers measure that waviness. And then there are the mirrors, or a film of mirrors on the telescope, move in real time to adjust for those atmospheric anomalies. It's almost exactly roughly like noise cancellation in headphones. When the way noise cancellation works is a microphone in the headphones hears the incoming noise and then produces a sound, generates the same sound into your ears at 180 degrees out of phase. And what that means is that it just cancels out the noise, basically. So if you have a peak of a sound wave coming in your ear from the outside, it's a plus peak, a peak going into the plus. What noise cancellation does is it generates an exact opposite negative peak against it. So basically, it's the sum comes to zero. The sum comes to zero. Instead of being plus or minus, it's 180 degrees, completely opposite of the incoming noise, and it basically smashes it down to zero, to no noise at all. So this is basically how the adaptive optics work in a telescope. The lasers measure the variations, the wobbles in the atmosphere, in the little mirrors, corresponding mirrors, thousands of them, wobble exactly the opposite to counter effect those wobbles in the atmosphere. And the result is a super sharp, ultra sharp, brilliant image of Mars in this case, or anything you're pointing these telescopes at, a clear image that you can get from the Hubble. Now, I haven't looked into how well this works for... I can already make a general assumption here. Look into it for yourselves. Geek Therapy Radio. This community is all about me sending you down this rabbit trail of geekdom. So don't quote me exactly on this, but just here's my theory. This is one of the beauties beautiful things about Geek Therapy Radio is I'm allowed to go down these geek rabbit trails and exercise my mind a little bit, exercise some critical thinking. And maybe if you have an differing opinion, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can comment below what you think or what the actual case is. But I invite you to do that. So let me postulate for a little bit on the benefits of the Hubble without adaptive optics to Earth base, even with adaptive optics. I think the Hubble is better suited for deep space applications, for looking at objects that are billions and billions of light years away, where there's almost no light coming from them. I don't think adaptive optics is going to be the best for eliminating natural light pollution. The Hubble is up there outside of light pollution. What I mean by light pollution is when you live near a city, for instance, here in Houston, Texas, you can't see even half the stars that are up there because the sky is glowing with all the street lights, with all the city lights, with all the everything else going on in the city. That's light pollution. So adaptive optics, the Hubble will be better suited for that situation because it's outside of that light pollution. It may not be as sharp of an image, but at least it would be a clearer image, if that makes sense. Basically, adaptive optics isn't, eliminating the need for orbiting telescopes like the James Webb that's about to go up, that keeps getting delayed and delayed and delayed. I want to say I hope the James Webb goes up with adaptive optics because that would be the best of both worlds. I would have a telescope up there outside of the constraints of light pollution, but with adaptive optics. The James Webb is going to be awesome. And if I was going to bet dollars to pesos, I would say that it probably does have adaptive optics, but I need to look that up. And if you're watching on YouTube here, I'll put in the description I'll just post right here on the video whether or not it has adaptive optics, because if you're listening on the air, I might be putting my foot in my mouth. But yeah, to cap up this segment, to bring it back down to earth, that's a good pun that I just did. To bring this astronomy discussion back down to earth, a lot of people's fears or concerns in getting into astronomy is it might be a little geek flicker of a flame in the back of their heads. I'm interested in astronomy, but it's way too expensive to get into, so I can't pursue that hobby because it just costs too much money. I'm here to tell you that it does not. And I'm going to be a little bit lame and say you can get into it for free just by looking up with your naked eye. Look at Mars, like right now as this show is being recorded. You can see Mars up there in the evening time. But without being cheeky about it, you can get a telescope for $50. If you set a budget at $100, you can actually get a really nice 4-inch telescope, a 4-inch reflector. You can also probably get a refractor. The difference between reflector and refractor is a refractor gathers light through a big lens at the front of the telescope and focuses it down to your eye, basically. What a reflector does is there's no lens on the front of it, just a wide open tube, but there's a big mirror in the back of it that collects all the light and then bounces that up to your eye. Reflectors are better at gathering light, at seeing distant objects. Refractors are better at getting a sharper picture of those objects. Schmidt-Cassegrains or Schmidt-Mazelkoffs or whatever they have, it's both. They got a lens up front and a mirror in the back, and it does both, and it's the best of both worlds, but they are expensive. But I'm saying, to get a refractor or a reflector, if you set a budget for $100, between $50 and $100, you get in great. If you want to go to my Instagram page, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram, or Twitter, just search Geek Therapy Radio on Twitter. It's Geek Therapy KPRC on Twitter. I've got a picture of my less than $100 telescope with my camera that I already owned attached to it. So when you spend $100 on a telescope to get into astronomy, you're getting the eyepieces. You're usually getting 1 or 2 eyepieces. You can see the moon like you wouldn't believe. Looking at Saturn is surreal. You see the moons of Jupiter. Oh, I'm going to touch on the moons of Jupiter. 12 more moons were found surrounding Jupiter, bringing the grand total to 79. I guess that's all I'm going to say about the Jupiter moons, is that now there's 79 moons officially discovered, because we recently discovered 12. They're all orbiting in different directions, and there's one oddball that's going opposite direction that could cause a head-on collision and chain reaction and blow up a bunch of moons. But anyways, look into that. Back to what I'm saying about astronomy, getting into astronomy. Rest assured, geeks, let me ease your mind. If you're interested in getting into the hobby of astronomy, you can get into it way, way cheaper than previously thought. I might put some links below the podcast on where to go look into getting telescopes. Hint, hint, Amazon. Just search telescope in Amazon. Set the budget to around $100 and you'll be good to go. You'll be seeing things in the night sky you never imagined. That's going to do it for this segment of Geek Therapy Radio. We'll be right back with more Geek Therapy Radio. I am your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. I really enjoyed talking about astronomy in this segment. In between the segment, if you're listening on terrestrial radio, make sure you're subscribed to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast. Make sure you're subscribed to Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all that good stuff. If you're watching on YouTube or you're listening to the podcast, we'll be right back after just a flash here, just a moment. There's not going to be all the commercials that you'd hear on the radio. So without further ado, let's get to those. Let's pay the bills. It'll be very brief again if you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast, but I'll just be right back. My name's Johnny Hemberger. I'm your mental curator. You're listening to Geek Therapy Radio. See you in a moment. But right before we go to the break, the good Dr. Steve Brule recently visited an observatory. He went and checked it out. Let's see what he learned.
Space. Didn't you always want to know about it? What could space be? What could it be made of? What the heck is all those lights out there? Is it just a black curtain with holes in it? I don't know. I'm trying to find out. That's why I went to observatory to figure it out. I met there a guy who has the world's largest microscope for looking at space. He's a great astrologer named Dang. So this man named Dang showed me around this big old dirty church where they have a microscope to look up close at stars. Look at me, there I am walking right there. So give it to me straight, Dangle. How big is the universe?
We don't really know. The universe may be infinite in size.
Tell me, how did this place start?
Well, there was a guy named George Hale who hiked up this mountain in 1903, and so he started it.
So what are you all sitting up here on top of the rock wasting your time for? Everyone knows space is just a bunch of rocks and gas, right?
Well...
Gotcha.
Right.
What about in the old days, before they had a big dirty church full of junk to look at the stars? What did Galileo look through it? What kind of microscope did he have?
Yeah, we have one of those here. It's an old refracting type telescope, and you can...
Let's check it out.
All right.
Who among us doesn't love great beer, amazing food, and arcade games? That's why I'm stoked beyond geek belief to tell you about Kung Fu Saloon, located at 5317 Washington Avenue, right here in Houston. Kung Fu Saloon on Washington Avenue has the geek trinity covered, and then some. Of course they have the most excellent beer on tap, the nomiest food off the grill, and the vintage arcade games we love. But you can also get your tay-tay on with karaoke, your super fan on with televised sports, and your rug cut to the best music and DJs on Washington Avenue. In addition to arcade games, get your competitive fix with Giant Jenga, Giant Connect 4, 3 skee-ball lanes, shuffleboard, and foosball. Get your drink, food, game, karaoke, and dance on. Or step to Street Fighter 2 with me and get your geek fanny served. Hadouken! Kung Fu Saloon, 5317 Washington Avenue. Visit www.kungfusaloonhouston.com for more details and dress code info. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm Johnny Hemberger, your mental curator. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm sorry I had to mess with the white balance of my camera a little bit. I had it set to automatic, and it was just fluctuating. So if it looks a little different in this segment, I adjusted it to about 3000K. Whatever. It was automatic. I didn't want automatic. Let's get to the brass tacks of this segment. I wanted to talk a bit about Elon Musk. His temper, his recent debacles in Thailand, and something that happened a little after Thailand. But we'll get into that. First, since it's on the subject, remember the Tesla Model 3? It didn't really go anywhere. Tesla's going through some stuff. Tesla's had a difficult time ramping up production of the Model 3. But remember at the very beginning, it was promised as a more affordable, more accessible electric car. It was supposed to start at $35,000, I believe, before all the tax incentives. There is no such thing to date, as of recording this episode of Geek Therapy Radio in, where am I recording this? July 2018. There's no such thing as a $35,000 Tesla Model 3. There's barely such thing as a Tesla Model 3. I say that with a caveat. Compared to like the Model S and Model X. I've seen several Tesla Model 3s. Can I say that? Tesla Model 3s running around Houston. I see probably a dozen Model S's every day. Probably a couple Model X's. There's 2 or 3 S's and X's just right here at the radio station in the parking garage. It's a 3-level parking garage. There's several Teslas in this garage at any given moment. But that's to be expected. This is a city of 6 million people, and the radio station is located in more or less the financial district of Houston. We're here in the Galleria area. There's a lot of money around here. I wish the money would make its way to me, but that's a story for a different day. So the Model 3, there's no 35,000 version of it. Tesla says, actually, where I was going with this is that Tesla has removed the $35,000 option from their website. You can no longer look or spec out the $35,000 Tesla Model 3 on the Tesla website. Now, Elon Musk insists that they are not discontinuing the promise of a $35,000 Tesla. It's just they have to wait on it. They need to keep selling. I think you can get into a Tesla Model 3 for around $50,000, $50K and up right now, and Musk says they need to do that to stay afloat. For Tesla to stay afloat, they can't afford to offer $35,000 Tesla Model 3s. So yeah, they've taken the $35,000 Model 3 option off of the website, but they insist that doesn't mean they're eliminating that option. It's just not on the website right now, and it will come later on, which begs so many questions. You know, what's the... I guess it's still technically less than a Model S, but still, that's $50,000 is hardly accessible for the average middle-class family, I would argue, especially an electric car, which at best is a secondary vehicle. Let's get real with it. Until the supercharging infrastructure gets better, electric cars will be secondary vehicles. If you're listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube and there's a comment section below, let me know your opinion on that. Are electric cars good enough yet in 2018 to be primary vehicles? Or do you still need to at least keep a gasoline-powered vehicle around? Because obviously there's the infrastructure for gasoline stations or petrol stations, if you're listening across the pond. The infrastructure's there for that. There's no limit how far you can go in one day. Versus right now with electric cars, even the best of them you can charge to 80% battery capacity in 30 minutes with super high amperage output superchargers, but the infrastructure's not there yet. I'd argue that 30 minutes to charge 80% isn't that bad. It isn't bad, actually. It's not bad at all. But you would need this infrastructure. You would need these superchargers within 100 or 200 miles of each other. You could never be more than 100 or 200 miles away from one of these supercharging ports. But as of now, that's not there. It's getting there rapidly, which is a good thing. One day, electric cars will just be your primary source of transportation. and you won't need the range reliability of a gasoline vehicle. Now, you can get an electric car and be driving that electric car 90% of the time, and then driving your gas one 10% of the time, which is good, of course. Your daily commute doesn't require you driving 300 miles back and forth every day. It requires, what is it on average, like 20 miles, 15 miles, something like that. In that case, yes, you can spend most of your time driving an electric car and have your gasoline car reserved for road trips. But I'm just saying, right now, you can't. It's not feasible exactly to have only an electric car. But let's get on to the what I really started this segment for. Elon Musk is in a little bit of hot water for calling one of those cave divers who rescued the kids a quote-unquote pedo. It was a British cave diver, and basically he got Musk's ire by basically saying that Elon Musk's little submarine stunt was nothing more than a publicity stunt. He didn't actually intend to help the children. He did it as a big publicity thing to bring attention to himself and his companies, that he didn't make that submarine to actually help the situation. I personally think it was both. Me and Austin Evans discussed this briefly in last week's episode, but I think it was a little column A and column B. Yes, he did get a lot of publicity for his efforts in the Thai cave rescue efforts, but I don't think he did it 100% just for publicity. I think he actually was trying to help. He was talking to Thai officials, rescue officials, about what the dimensions, what the submarine needed, what it needed to be. So he was actually working with them in developing this submarine, and he actually got it across the world just in case they needed it. But one of the cave divers said that basically he could take his mini submarine and shove it where it hurts, quote unquote. Shove it where the sun don't shine. Musk didn't like that and basically called the guy a pedo guy. So he tweeted this. This was all in tweets. Elon Musk has, of course, deleted that string of tweets and apologized. Publicly apologized, which he doesn't usually do, and I can't think of another time when he's actually publicly apologized. I can think of times, and it's no mystery that Musk can get testy. I'm not going to compare Elon Musk to Donald Trump politically, of course, absolutely not. But there are certain characteristics about both of them that they share that it seems, it's just my opinion here, it seems that they have a difficult time accepting criticism, processing criticism, and I would argue that maybe it's not really criticism if the person is actually insulting you personally with baseless claims. But the way Musk responds to these insults or these quote-unquote attacks, and the way Trump responds to these insults or criticisms and attacks, it's similar. And I think it has more to do with the supremely competitive nature of people like that. This is where we're getting into a little bit of geek therapy, actually. I like a lot of what Musk is doing, but there's something to be said, and I got to remember this in my own life too. We all have to remember this, that you can't speak or do things out of the initial surge of anger, the initial endorphin rush or whatever goes through your body that makes you do irrational things. We have to make sure our inhibitor chip is working, that it's implanted and it's working. Not to react, not to go on Twitter after somebody insults you or criticizes you. Go on social media, period. And here's why I'm saying that. If I were to go on social media and say something really stupid and say, that guy, he insulted me, I'm going to call him a pedophile, make a baseless claim, baseless insult against somebody. For somebody like me who's building a radio show, building a brand, building a media, trying to stake out my place in this media landscape, I have to be very thoughtful with how I respond to criticism. Believe me, on my YouTube video, there's always going to be a little element of people hating on you. People in the comments section throwing shade, so to speak, as the kids say, as they chomp on the Tide Pods. These people are throwing shade in the YouTube comments, and I have to think, as somebody building my brand and my image, how do I respond to that? Usually it's just not to respond. So that's my example. I'm not a billionaire. I'm not an Elon Musk or a Donald Trump. What we need to think about, and what specifically, I'm not giving Elon Musk advice. I'm just giving, just take what I'm saying as just kind of throw it back there in your mental locker a little bit. When Elon Musk says these things, when Elon Musk reacts out of anger, people lose money. What he said when he called that guy basically a pedophile, the Tesla stock went down. The stock numbers went down, and it shook and spooked investors. People like Elon Musk have way more on the table, way more risk when they react out of anger. So that's what I'm saying to you, my geeks and geekettes, and anyone else who's listening right now to Geek Therapy Radio. Welcome in, by the way, if you're just tuning in on KPRC 950 AM. What I'm trying to convey to you in this segment here of Geek Therapy Radio is that when you want to react out of anger, when that initial surge, we all need to, including me, need to do our best to wait a beat, just to take a second, calm down, and let the anger pass. Let react with a clearer head, a clearer mind, and not do these reactions and say these things that you can't take back out of anger. It's kind of a call to action to all of us. Let's work on how we react. And just basically, if you take anything away from this, don't react out of anger, period. Because you can do real lasting damage. That's one of the ramifications of social media now. We're all connected, and that's stuff, even though Musk took it down, that it lasts forever. You can delete your tweets, but someone screenshotted them, someone saved them. It's all over. It's still on the Twitter servers. You can't say stuff like that and just delete it like nothing happens. What a world we live in. So that's all I'm saying. Just next time you get angry when someone insults you or criticizes you, just take a beat, take a breath. Think about how you're going to react to that. And in most cases, the best reaction is no reaction. I think Chris Hardwick is handling his accusations well by being so quiet about it. He said his thing and he just let it sit, and he's dealing with it privately. That's good. Elon Musk could learn from... You need to understand where I'm coming from here. Elon Musk can learn a little bit from Chris Hardwick. The jury's still out. Honestly, I got to be careful what I say about the allegations against Chris Hardwick. But the way he's handling it is better than just going on a social media rant against Chloe Dykstra and saying all sorts of miscellaneous, baseless things against her. He said, I'm really hurt by these accusations. I need to think about it. That's basically what his reaction has been. So yeah, let's all take a beat. Think about how we're going to respond to things and make sure we're not responding out of anger, because you can't take that stuff back now in the digital age. Let that be a lesson to all of us. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. I'm super bad at outros, so I'm just going to get out of this real quick. Subscribe to all the Geek Therapy Radio stuff, Facebook, Instagram, here on YouTube. Subscribe. We'll be right back with more Geek Therapy Radio. I'm Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator. Stick around in just a moment, because we will be right back. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. Once again, your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger. We're just going to dive right into a little game you may have heard of. Does that sound? You ever get a brain fart and it's like, am I saying words right? I struggle with that all the time on this show. A little game you may have heard of called Fortnite. Your 12-year-old cousin loves it, I guarantee you. A lot of people like it. It's a worldwide phenomenon. And was PUBG ever more popular than Fortnite? PUBG came out first, and then Fortnite basically took some of the formula of PUBG and then just ran with it, obviously. So let's get into... But why is it so popular? Glad you came to Geek Therapy Radio, because I'm finna explain why Fortnite is so popular. Break it down, step by step. Let's just get right into it. The first reason why Fortnite's so popular is it's a battle royale game. That's the battle royale game dynamics. It's also free. So battle royale games are already popular. PUBG's a battle royale game. Fortnite, obviously, a battle royale game. Is Overwatch kind of, maybe kind of. Not to the degree of PUBG or Fortnite, as far as battle royale goes, but I think more of it's just a deathmatch game. Anyways, Fortnite, it's got the battle royale game dynamics that are so popular right now. It's free, and free means that there's really no barrier to entry, since you don't have to pay to get into the door. I'm gonna turn off the AC real quick because it just kicked on. Turn off the AC real quick because it just kicked on. Hopefully you didn't see on the video, if you're watching on YouTube, that I'm not wearing pants at all. Well, I'm wearing boxers. Anyways, so Battle Royale game dynamics, it's free to enter, so anyone can start playing the game. And it's also available on tons and tons and tons of devices. You can play it on your iPhone, you can play it on a PC, you can play it on a Mac, you can play it all over the place. So it covers all the bases. As far as if you've got a device, it can probably play Fortnite. And the AC just kicked off. Great. So that's a fair. It's a fair game also, because while you can pay real money for costumes and gadgets and different things, all that does is alter your player's pixels, which is crazy. Paying for something that's not real and tangible, paying real money for a different outfit or a different dance or whatever. I haven't played Fortnite a lot, so I don't know exactly what all goes into it. I just know that you can't. It's not like you can pay for a flamethrower and then walk in there while everyone else is using pea shooters. So you can pay for extra stuff in the game, but it has no effect on your edge, your strategic edge against other people. It's very colorful, which goes against the grain in a good way. So while the competition strives to milk every ounce of power from modern hardware to embrace the ultra realism, like in PUBG, so to speak, it's made to look real and gritty. Fortnite's winning combo includes a bright and colorful cartoony approach. It's also hugely social, and like I mentioned before, cross-platform. iPhone users can play against PC users, for better or for worse. And it's probably, in my opinion, a little bit for the worse due to latency, because your iPhone is probably not connected to an Ethernet cable, so your ping is probably outrageous. But cross-platform, that means no matter what device you have, you can play against people on other devices. Which, again, take it with a grain of salt, good or bad, depending on how you look at it. It's also not gory or violent. So parents are more likely to let their kids play it. It's more approachable by a mass group of people, since even more conservative parents would let their kids play it, since it's not gory, and it's also cartoony. You can take out other players with a balloon axe, for God's sake. You don't have to blow their heads off with bazookas like you do in other games. You smack them with a balloon axe, and you can win the game. You can win the match, hitting them with balloons, basically. You don't even have to shoot anyone at all. You can build a shelter and camp out until the field whittles down players, until it's left you and one other person, and then you just jump out of your shelter or whatever. You take them out. Play a stealthy game. You can camp in it, which, again, good or bad, it's up to you. Campers, freaking campers. What else? It's also a very dynamic and changing game environment. it's kind of like Rocket League. Rocket League always updates with more maps and more arenas and stuff like that, and it's kind of similar to that in that regard. It's a very, very dynamic, changing game. And I was playing PUBG the other day, and my friend who I play with, Nathan, who's been on the show, just up and quit one day. Said, I hate PUBG now. So I was like, okay, I just started playing PUBG. I guess we're not playing PUBG anymore. So that's the reasons why Fortnite is popular. Do you agree or disagree? If you're watching on YouTube, comment below what you think about Fortnite. Other than that, we'll be back with one final segment of Geek Therapy Radio. I don't exactly know what it's going to be about. It's probably going to cover a bunch of different things, but just stay tuned. We'll be right back. I'm Johnny Hamburger. Welcome back to the final segment of Geek Therapy Radio this week. I'm Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator. Be sure to follow and subscribe and like and all that stuff, all the Geek Therapy social media on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of that good stuff. Like, follow, and subscribe. Geek Therapy Radio with Johnny Hamburger. The podcast is also available on Google Podcasts now. Google Podcasts is kind of a new platform. I'm very excited about it. You can also ask Alexa to play Google Geek Therapy Radio, and hoping I didn't just trigger my Alexa. So let's hit some topics, a few topics rapid fire here on the way out of Geek Therapy Radio this week. Therapists, like actual therapists, are using virtual reality to help cure people's fears. For example, a fear of heights. Have you ever been playing VR and like Mirror's Edge VR or something like that, and you look over a ledge and holy crap, it gives you that vertigo and that fear? Therapists and doctors are actually looking into and adapting VR, using VR to help help people cope with their fears of heights and fears of maybe social anxiety and all that kind of stuff. So VR is serving a great purpose. We all knew it would, and it probably has been for years, but nothing like it is now. VR is hasn't been anything like it is now. So that's a good thing. You don't have to just use VR for playing games and other stuff. There's a flying car company, I believe it's in Canada, it's called Openers. Openers Black Fly VTOL aircraft, VTOL, VTOL, stands for vertical takeoff and landing. It won't require a license. It'll have a range of 25 miles and fly at 62 miles per hour. Opener wants to democratize three-dimensional personal transportation. Let me just weigh in on that for a second. No. A lot of people can't figure out friggin' turn signals now. It's a little lever and even turns off automatically. People just drift across lanes. They're too lazy or too stupid, sorry to get so testy, to use a turn signal. There's no way on God's green earth that the average civilian can be trusted with a flying vehicle. We are so far away from that. So far away from that. No. Thumbs down. Do I want to fly in this thing? Yes, thumbs up. I want to, personally. But the average Joe, and by the way, Jeep drivers now, are you listening, Jeep drivers? You're the new BMW no turn signal stereotype. Sorry to tell you. And if you don't believe me, just observe around you on your next commute. Watch the Jeeps. Anything with the Jeep badge on it. Ever since Chrysler took over, they're not installing turn signals anymore. So you're never going to see a blinker and a lane change from a Jeep. You probably won't see one turning right or turning left. It's just very rare for a Jeep nowadays to use turn signals. Have you noticed that? Because I sure have. Just even driving 10 miles, on the way home from work today, both Jeeps I saw didn't use their signal. It's crazy. It's an epidemic. Jeep drivers are the new BMW drivers when it comes to turn signals. I'm sorry. Please let me know if you're a Jeep driver and you use your signals. Please tell me that you are decent on the road. Please tell me that it's not true for all Jeep owners. Maybe it's just in Houston. I don't know. Season 3 of Stranger Things has been teased. They haven't given us much in this trailer. It's basically, there's a new modern mall, 80s, by the way, mall being set up in their town. So it's probably going to be surrounding that mall or inside that mall in Hawkins, Indiana. Critics have said that Stranger Things relies too heavily on nostalgia and not enough on story. I disagree. I think it relies on nostalgia, yes, but that the story is also good. Real quick remember that boat that people could vote on the name? And they voted Boaty McBoatface? Nope, they've changed it. It's the RSS Sir David Attenborough now. That's kind of a bummer. I mean, nothing against Attenborough, but anyways, that's going to do it for Geek Therapy Radio this week. Follow all the social media, Geek Therapy Radio with Johnny Hamburger, and I will see you next week. Sorry you're so quick last segment. Sorry, I'll see you next week.